Rakow. Could everyone please put where you're watching from in the chat? We'd love to know. I think there's at least one person from the Philippines. So hi, April. Lovely to see you all here. All right, more Chicago. That's me. And we're gonna get started pretty quickly, but there are a few more people coming in as we're waiting.
Hello, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Yes. Patrick.
Hello.
Oh, I think Hillary is here, so I think we're pretty much all set. So that's great. So do you think is everyone in? We have about almost 60 people. That's wonderful. You know, a lot of several people in France. Let's see, I'm not sure who's the furthest.
Yes,
furthest today.
Patrick is from France.
Of course. Okay, so we have a packed schedule today. I think we are likely to run a bit over the hour. So I'm hoping everyone is able to stay for a couple extra minutes. Since these meetings used to be able to be closer to an hour and a half. So I think we'll probably try for an hour 15 today. But we have two main presenters talking about sort of more three-dimensional pop-ups, not just in books. So obviously our paper engineering pops up everywhere. So we're really looking forward to hearing from them. Rob, are you back and ready to present, or should Marianne start off the deck for you?
Yeah, I think I can do it now.
Okay, can you go ahead and share your screen? So I mean, I don't know. I was introduced to you at, I think, the 2 meetings ago with the most amazing pop-up business card, but you're going to be talking about some really different scale today. So why don't you go ahead and share and tell us about your standalones?
Okay. Does that look like it's on the screen for you?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, good. Okay, yep. Yeah, they asked me to speak about some of these standalone pop-ups. And in case you don't know me, some of you do, some of you don't. I'm Rob Kelly. I've been working in paper for about 25 years, ish, a little less. But I've been doing pop-ups for my whole life because I worked with paper as a kid, mostly because I was just sort of a tinkerer and inventor, and paper was the only medium really available to me. As a child, my mom didn't want me to use the bandsaw or the welding machine in the garage, so I had to make my things out of paper. And I still work in paper. So, and this is some experience, just show what I've done before. A lot of these early ones are from structural graphics. One or two of you there have worked or did work there before. Some luxury packaging. Some of these are greeting cards, pop-up books. Some of these are decor items. And then some personal pop-ups that I still do. In the bottom left corner there, that doesn't exist. It's a photorealistic. It's a rendering of a 3D model. So and then the thing in the top right is something for structural graphics that we had a patent for, and it won some design awards. That happens every once in a while. You come up with something unique enough that they could patent it. So that's just to show some background, and also some other things I just do that might feed into my work sometimes. I've done electronics quite a bit, and done 3D printing, 3D modeling, some fine arts with paper, and that's my son. I made him a little. Sometimes I do art projects with paper for people that like just a costume out of more or less cardboard. And I was trained in animation. Actually, I was in animation classes when someone sort of scouted me to go work for structural graphics to do paper because I just did these pop-up cards on my own between classes, and I didn't even know that was a job. I didn't even know you could do this for a living. So but they sent me to Connecticut to check that out. um and so my process is similar to what a lot of paper engineers do. They sort of get down with the paper and the tape and fold paper and do that work. But I also, because of mostly of the experience I had, I work in AutoCAD, so very technical, very complicated, sometimes on screen. Sometimes I design a whole thing 2D, just staring at vector lines without ever even touching paper, and then send it to a plotter to just verify that it's going to work. So sometimes it doesn't start by playing with paper. Sometimes it starts the other way, but I've done both. So both are part of my process. And yeah, and so these are some of the Christmas cards. This is just a side project. This is the only pop-up I ever did before I did it for a living. I just did these one card a year. I'd make 100 of these and I send them out. And yeah, so then the pop-up, the card form, the greeting card form is something that I got very used to, and then I sort of tried to break out of that at some point. And as I was looking for reference for this, I found this is one of the earlier ones I found. This would have been, I don't know, mid 90s. And this would have been done on Corel Draw, totally hand cut. There's no like plotter cutting or anything like that. So, and I just made like 100 of these just to break out of the form of like a book or a card, like an opening card format. This just stands on its own, just pops together, and it became an ornament. And that was just like my wife and I in a sleigh, and that engine kind of folds out of the back. And unfortunately, I don't have better pictures of it, and I don't think I have one anymore, but that gives you the idea. And here's a little bit later one. This would have been plotter cut, done in CAD, but and this is a little viewer. Sorry if that's gonna make you dizzy, but it's the only clip I had. There's a plastic lens in the front there that you can look through, and then there was a scene printed on tissue or like a transparency inside so that you could see a little scene inside the igloo. And that just pops up and locks together. I'm not showing it that way here, but it just becomes a little object that in lieu of a card every year. Some of them were these objects. Here's another structural graphics piece. This was bound into Rolling Stone in an envelope to protect it. They would have made about 1 million, maybe over 1 million. Sometimes these were 1 million of them. So that little kiosk, it's like an IT kiosk for it was to promote a TV show called Chuck. I guess he was a nerd and he gave computer advice. I'm not sure, I never watched it, but I made this little thing that you just pop together and it locked, and so that it was like a desk piece to remind you about the show and to promote it. And so when you're doing these things that get made over 1 million of them, you have to be really judicious and about how many assembly points it is, because it just adds up. The cost of these can be really high when you're multiplying a 1 or 2 seconds of assembly across like 1 million pieces. So that was valuable to learn that kind of work from structural, how to keep things simple. Another thing also for structural graphics, our CEO was and I think is a fireman, so we did some work for the local fire company for fundraising and whatnot. I like this truck. We did a few of these vehicles, but this is probably the oldest one they had. It had old running boards that fold out, and the ladder's off angle, and the nose is tapered. So it's fun to do these unusual shapes. And that you could just kind of squeeze that together and it would snap into shape. And so that was a fun object. After working with structural graphics, I've done a lot of work with Museum of Modern Art, their card program. So that was a little cuckoo clock. It's hard to see the dangling pendulum, but there's like a acorn pendulum there. The oven was something that popped together, and then when you open the oven door, there's a cookie sheet, and the little gingerbread man stands up. And we did a lot of these cars, different vehicles for advertising. So I just did a different one. I made sort of a station wagon with a tree on top as an ornament. And it's another MoMA card. It was an object. Very simple engineering on this one, which is not my normal thing, but every once in a while you don't really need to make it any more complicated than it is. So yeah, this one was fairly simple. Just it looks nice with the foil, and that's kind of fun to do. And this is where I think I started doing a coin operated sort of game series. I didn't realize I was doing that, but I think the next year I did another one also for MoMA, and this was an old crane, like digger machine, and I'll just show some of the early work on it. And this had some interactivity. I like putting little sort of Easter eggs, interactive elements in there, little lift flap there, and you could manipulate the string that it was hanging with to pretend you're collecting a teddy bear. So that's fun to do. Another one also from that same series. And this is a pinball machine. This is a pared down version of a very early, I did a sort of self-promotional business card for myself around a pinball machine. I just like the idea of how much art and science there is in pinball. So it always appealed to me, that because what we do as paper engineers is like art and science. And so it's a theme I revisit all the time. And this was a fun pinball machine. You would squeeze that together. It snaps into a locked position and stands as it is on the left there. And there's a little unlock tab underneath. And so another one, this may have been the last one of these that I did from this series. That was sort of, these are little Christmas elves playing foosball, football in most of the world. But these foosball tables, a lot of fun. This one is fully interactive. You could actually play the game if you wanted with the little pom-pom. Each one had that little white pom-pom, and the little figures can turn and score goals. And let's see. It's another one that's relatively simple engineering. I like the theme. There's another MoMA card. This pops together, and it's a train on a track. And also looks good with the foil. It always seems to elevate it. There's some foam. Sponge things to give the side dimension there. We use those sometimes. Yeah, I like this one. This was something different. My grandfather had left us, my wife and I, some old ornaments, I think from the 60s. And they were like little balls with scenes inside of them, little scenes. And I was inspired by that. I tried to make an ornament with, could have a little pop-up scene inside that could fold flat. And it was sitting on a carrier card there earlier, just to make it mail safe, and for a message area. And I like this. I may revisit this too. And I was thinking about doing a slightly different shape and different scene, but that was fun. I do a lot of work now for American Greetings. When I first got hired, I did pop-up cards, like whatever pop-up cards they needed done. And we started doing more displayable pop-ups. And so I did all these, and I think some of these evolved into they are standalone objects in their own way. So some of these evolved into the other objects that I'll try to show here. This was a barbecue grill for, I think this was just for a Father's Day idea. And you just kind of squeeze that and popped it together, and makes a fun barbecue grill. And here's another one that's just showing a very early rough proof of concept, and then with the artwork that the American Greetings has studio artists that take our work, and we'll have to make a very tight template, show where everything glues, where it goes, and then some of us put, and I know I do, put an art guide on there, like a more formal art guide. I think I have a better slide of it later to show. And then they'll follow that so that they know what the intention was, and they make a much better job of the color artwork than I would probably do. So, and this one has a little mini card, that thing that says Happy Father's Day in the middle. That ticket is removable, and it opens like a little book, and you can write things in there. It's the message area. Oh yeah, these are our decor objects, also for American Greetings. These were they're not sold with the intention to be greeting cards. So these are just objects around a theme. This was a merry-go-round to go with some Halloween decor. And so they do a really cute artwork there. And yeah, this gets complicated. I had to really, most art majors aren't great at math, but I have to be, and some of us I guess are, but I had to know, like, how to resolve the circumference from a known radius and vice versa, because they had some changes here, and when they want to change the size of something like this, those measurements ripple through all of the engineering. So if you're not a squash the paper and measure kind of guy, and you have to know ahead of time, which that's my case, I have to know all the math behind it before, whenever they make a change, I have to sort of sort all that out on screen. And I remember this one being like mathematically challenging because of the way it's a hexagon and it's a cone in 3D space, and any changes, or I don't know, the math gets a little, I'm not going to bore you with it. it gets crazy. This shows some of the art guide that I would put on. This is like a haunted mansion I did, and the artist did a really good job making it fun and moody. But yeah, so they follow that. I have a working engineering sample with line art on it, and they'll follow that. And we'll put all kinds of things on there about which panel's which, so they can understand, and where things glue, where things, how they assemble. But and then this just shows how the consumer handles that. So ideally, try to get it to, it's not difficult for them to put together. The hard part should be on our end, so that they just kind of squish that together and pop the roof down. Ideally, like 1 or 2 steps like that's enough. I don't want them to do a whole lot of tuck tabs and all this stuff, but later on you'll see one that I was less happy with. It was an early one. It required a lot more assembly, and I learned from that I don't really want I don't want them to do a whole lot of work on their end. Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunities for a little hidden artwork you could see in these little flaps and there. So what's that? That would have been an early engineering sample, and then I tried to show what it looks like skinned with final artwork. These came out fun. And this is from the same series, and these are all scaled the same so that you could display them together. The church was the first one, and that's the one I'm at least happy with the way it pops together. And then there was another one, a little coffee shop thing, cafe. Here's how some of them go together. This one it needed too much work on the consumer end, I thought, after I did it. But so later ones, I tried to make it easier on the consumer just to be able to easily pop these together. So this one ended up with printed acetate in front. Plastics just to show where it goes. And yeah, I think that door opens in the back. I'm not showing it there, but anywhere where we can get a little Easter egg in the artwork, we try to do that. And so this would have been plotter cut. And then turned over digitally with a sample to an artist to finalize the artwork, and then it gets printed in-house for samples, and then it goes to Asia for production in this case. And this is one of the last things I have. That's the idea came from me this time, just to do I think they asked for a train, and I thought, well, a train station would be nice with it, so I ended up giving myself more work. But this pops together fairly easily. There's a lock. The little bench on the side is the lock. And again, this kind of reminds me when I used to work at Structural Graphics in Connecticut, there was a little train station near the office. An old steam train used to go there, so this kind of reminded me of that when I was working on it. Anyway, so that's another object I have, and maybe that's it. All right, that's the end of the show. And you can see my work on Instagram. It's Red Dog Rob, and I also have robkellydesign.com. I honestly don't update that as often as I need to, so it probably needs some help. I got to talk to Roston or somebody that's a good web guy and maybe get that fixed up. But that's where I am. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rob. This is amazing. I think we have a couple minutes for questions, so let's dig back through the chat for a second. I have to say, I think the bench is my absolute favorite. It's the way it folds up sort of feels like structural, and that is a really, really fun way.
Hi, Suzanne. It looks like the only question that Rob had was if he did foiling, which I think he answered that because it looks like we saw some foils on there.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's difficult to in the early samples. I'll just indicate where I want foil stamping to happen. But I once or twice have done that. Like for the jute box, I think I cut some foil with an adhesive back and laid it on there just to show it. But most of the time, I'll just indicate that area digitally. They'll put foil on there for us.
Do you think the foil works better in the context of greeting cards than it does in say books?
Yeah, I think in greeting cards they want you to when you do something like any kind of special finishing, like if you do crystalline or foil, any kind of like flocking, you want that up front so that the consumer can see it, because it shows some value, like it shows some extra value. So you have to on the front of the card usually, not inside, or somewhere where it can be seen at retail, so you got a quality card there, I guess.
Yeah, and it just seems like there's tarnishing that happens after the fact. You think the pages would protect it, but it just really depends on the finish. Let's look at Mike.
Yeah.
Mike is asking about Easter eggs. You mentioned that you do use flaps to hide a little bit of that, but do you have some favorites? Just want to briefly talk about.
Some favorites. I think I worked on a book with Roston for Andy Warhol, and there was some fun. We used our own face. There was a photo booth that we did, and we used black and white sort of mug shots of he and I in that, so that our faces are in the artwork. That's kind of fun. But
Nice.
But there are lots of little places where we hide Easter eggs in the art. It's inexpensive to just put a little die cut door, like a little advent door, different places in the artwork. So as long as it doesn't add a lot of cost, it's fine to do that usually. But
Right. Well, we have a couple of sillier questions. Whether you own a red dog, and if we can have a drum solo.
yeah, you don't want a drum solo, but yeah, there's all kinds of junk back here, and I do have a red dog. Yeah, the red dog is my sister and I had a little red dog and a yellow bear when we were little kids. So that when I did animation, we had to pick a character and stick with it because he didn't want us distracted by coming up with different characters. So I was doing the red dog and the little bear, and I don't know, the red dog kind of became my symbol. So I have a little crayon drawing of him on the back of all of my greeting cards, sort of a logo. I do still have him. He never had legs, apparently. I thought his legs fell off as I grew up, but I saw an old picture of myself as a baby, and I don't know why they would sell a dog to a kid with no legs, but he's just like a red dog, and he just has arms with no legs. He's always been that way. So I thought I broke his legs. I felt bad about it, but he never had them. So
Right, things you learn. Yeah, Rustin put the Easter egg, the Warhol Easter egg in the chat so people can go look at that. So like, well, thank you so much, Rob. We really appreciate you showing us such a richness of breadth in this area. So yeah, we'll move on to Pierre Fontaine now. We can if you can unmute yourself, that'd be great. And yeah, Marianne should be able to spotlight you, share your screen. Thank you, and thank you for inspiring this meeting actually, because you'd had a few items you'd worked with Party City on, and that we want to hear about them. So let's move on. We can always take more questions for everyone later.
Thank you. It's actually interesting. I've never met Rob before, but it's fascinating how your background and my background seem to have paralleled, because I was also in animation for quite a few years. Ended up doing designing party goods. It's a very strange transition, but I've always worked in paper ever since I was a kid. Likewise, I've always designed, but my paperwork was always more like paper models. I like to make things that you could glue together, cut and glue together. So, for instance, this is a lighthouse model that I did as a commission. Which is all paper. It was just meant to be printed out and cut together and glued. But having said that, when I started at Party City, we ended up with a problem. Well, two things. One, I actually worked for a company called AmScan. AmScan was the manufacturing division of Party City. And we had two problems. One is that in order to save costs, they were requiring that the customer would have to do more of the manual work. You purchase something, it's shipped flat. You have to open it up, you have to assemble it, you have to put things together. That proved to be problematic because some of the pieces were very, very complicated and time consuming. The other problem was that sometimes the vendors would alter things even after we approved them, so that what hit the shelves didn't always match what we were intending to sell. So we were trying to come up with ways to sort of get around that problem. And one of the things we discussed was doing pre-assembled pop-up decorations so that the customer would just have to take them out of the package, open them up, and then there'd be a centerpiece, a dimensional centerpiece that would be available. So what I've done is I had prepared, my intention was to go to the most recent Movable Book Society conference and give a talk about this, because there was a lot of challenges for a consumer products company to try and do this when it's never been done before. The vendors weren't ready for it. I knew what I was doing, but a lot of the artists didn't quite understand what I was doing. So as part of that presentation, which I never did have a chance to give because I didn't go, I had prepared this video, which I'm going to show now. So I'm going to share my screen. And this is specifically about a haunted house decoration that we were working on. And I'll just play the video. It'll actually sort of describe the whole process. And I'll give it a start now. As an employee of AmScan, which was the production division of Party City, I developed a reputation as a problem solver and was often given projects to work on that had problems that needed fixing. One project was a dimensional haunted house that could fold flat for shipping, but would be easy for the customers to open and display. Getting to the correct solution required a bit of work. The year before, I had designed a dimensional paper luau centerpiece. As always, this decoration needed to fold flat for shipping. To put the decoration together, the customer would open the base, place a plastic cylinder through a guide hole, and then place the roof on to complete the decoration. The design team used artwork from a children's Halloween ensemble and adapted the basic construction of my luau decoration to make a folding dimensional haunted house centerpiece. The design ended up being overly complex, required too many fragile pieces, which would have been prohibitively expensive for a vendor to manufacture. Because I had designed the original luau decoration, I was asked to fix the haunted house centerpiece. I soon realized that the design team had created something that could not be easily fixed, which freed me up to consider another approach. When my daughter was about 10 years old, I made a decoration for her birthday using a plastic unicorn toy that she loved as inspiration. I wanted the decoration to fold flat and open up to reveal 3 different dimensional scenes. She sees the unicorn at a distance. She then makes friends with that unicorn. And then finally, she takes off into the sky with her new unicorn friend. About the same time, I was asked by AmScan if I could rework one of our basic centerpiece designs made of 2 intersecting pieces of cardboard. The desire was to create something with additional dimensionality. Using my daughter's unicorn decoration as inspiration, I added an extra piece of cardboard that wrapped around and intersected the 2 central pieces to create extra dimensionality. This design created multiple planes of interest which could still fold flat for shipping. Using this basic approach, I redesigned the haunted house decoration. In previous designs, the 2 central pieces were always the focus of the decoration. The haunted house reversed this approach so that the outer piece became the center of interest, while the 2 central pieces created the haunted house interior. Open windows added interest by allowing the viewer to see inside the haunted house. The decoration is large enough so that an electric tea light could be placed inside to illuminate the interior. I'm adapting this folding decoration concept to create new designs. I'm currently creating a Christmas creche that can be used as a centerpiece or as a dimensional greeting card if the design were reduced in size. I have many other ideas for this format to play with in the near future. My wife has been making postcards or sending postcards out to get the vote out. She asked if I would make a pop-up card because it would probably have a lot more retention and novelty and people will love it. So I made about 100 of those cards and we sent them out to upstate New York. The company I work for, AmScan, decided that they wanted to pursue the Mario license and they were in the process of getting the contract signed, and we were tasked with coming up with different ideas. And I've been wanting to do a pop-up play set for a very long time, something that could fold out and have characters and have some play value. So ultimately, what you saw was the prototype, and this is the final version. You can see that it's now been populated with artwork. And it has a little pocket on the side where the characters can come out. They're all in little cardboard stands, so you can take them out, unfold the stands, and place them all over the playset. Unfortunately, this product didn't get used, so it was never produced. All right, that was it. As an employee of AmScan, which was the production division of Party City, I developed a reputation as a problem solver and was often given. Sorry about that. Oh. So I'm sorry. So that was basically, I hope you all got a chance to hear that properly. You know, what the problem would happen ultimately is that Party City and AmScan closed. That was a pretty big story back in December. Party City went out of business. And it wasn't necessarily because we were trying something new or trying something innovative. It was just the fact that, you know, the market was creating a situation where we just couldn't survive anymore. You know, we were dealing with vendors in China. We were dealing with COVID. We were dealing with supply chain issues. And the company went into receivership, came out of receivership. The new owners of the company, who were the new investors, let go half the company in September and then closed the company in December. But, I really appreciate the fact that they were open to the idea of trying new things. And for the 2 or 3 items that did make it onto the shelves, including the haunted house, that was worth all the while. So that's pretty much the extent of my my presentation.
Well, can you tell us about the numbers of produced? Because obviously there's a big difference between the 100 get out the vote, which were cards, which were wonderful, versus these centerpieces. What I mean, these were on all. I mean, how many Party City stores were there that had these?
Right. So there were probably 800 some odd Party City stores in the United States. So each store, received perhaps, I don't know, a dozen. I have no idea. This is the funny thing about a company like Party City and Amscan is that the departments were very, very compartmentalized. So as a design department would provide the art production team, which was me, or the team I was on with what we were working on, the product managers were working with the vendors to work out any problems, cut costs where necessary, and very often these teams weren't talking to each other. So that created problems. And it actually was, and as I was getting to earlier, for a customer experience, I'm certain if you've ever purchased things at Party City, they're fairly cheaply made. And they're nicely designed, but sometimes they're just very flimsy. And I had worked on a really lovely decoration that was supposed to be fully assembled at the factory, and come to find out, and even we were getting samples from the factory fully assembled, but by the time it hit the shelves, it had been sort of turned into sub-assemblies, so that rather than be glued together at the factory, they just included the pieces with tape and forced the customer to have to sort of put it together. And it was ridiculous. And, I felt so terrible that this was an issue that the customer had to deal with. And because I was doing a lot of this sort of product development, I personally just asked to kind of be much more intimately involved with the development, the pricing, any interactions with the vendors. And as we kept going, we were finding that it was easier and easier and coming with solutions. So that kind of thing wasn't happening, that was a surprise to us. Obviously, that was going to become a problem for the vendor who did that without our knowledge. But the fact of the matter is that the stuff ended up on the shelves, and we created like instruction sheets, very, very simple. Just open it up, put the tabs together, and you'll have a nice decoration. Well, the instruction sheets didn't even match the product they were receiving anymore, when it changes at the factory in China. So it was a problem. So the nice thing about the haunted house project was that we just decided that simpler was better. And rather than have like 10, 15 pieces of cardboard that had to be kind of assembled together at the factory, that haunted house is really just 3 pieces of cardboard. It's 2 central pieces that slot together and another piece that kind of wraps around and tabs in, and it folds flat, and it's so simple. It's dead simple. And then it just opens up and you can put it on a table, and it's a very nice decoration. So we hope to do more. But like I said, the company closed. And I've just been pursuing that same idea. This is the latest iteration of the Christmas crush that I showed in the video. Same construction, but it folds flat. And depending on the size, it could make either a nice card or a centerpiece again. But because there's no company that sort of like fuel development of this, I'm just doing it as a personal project at this point.
All right, thank you, Pierre. We had a good question from Katie Smith. Pierre, that was amazing. I've noticed that the work you showed was rather large in size. Do you prefer working on larger items than on smaller card sizes, or were you just the go-to large problem projects guy?
So, right. So we would receive basically a spec, centerpieces generally were about 11, 12 inches tall, about 10 inches wide, 11 inches wide. That's what they wanted to do. They always wanted the centerpieces to be fully round, which is not exactly what would happen with something like this, because when you look in the back, there's really no dimensionality. It's just a blank piece. But the intent was always to sort of do something that was roughly about 12 inches tall that would look nice on the table. So it's not the size that I normally would have worked at, but I was adaptable to it.
Thanks. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, I don't know. I'm actually curious, Rob. Have you had any assembly issues along those lines with like the MoMA series or something, where you're maybe a little further away from it than at American Greetings?
Oh yeah, I totally understand what Pierre's talking about there. Sometimes when you work with a big company, your work, you're sort of signed off. I know this is going to work great. Then it goes to production, and if you don't have a way to influence it after that fact, then sometimes it gets into the consumer's hand, and you think, oh, yeah, it's a little embarrassing. Like, oh, I didn't mean for it to be like that at all, but someone else made some decisions further down the line for whatever reason, cost or feasibility on their end. And I've only ever had one problem with a MoMA card that they actually were going to make it. The factory could not figure out how to make it. They involved me, which is unusual, again, to see if I could help. And I sent some shots back to tell them what they were doing wrong, because I had seen what, I don't want to get into the details, but they were doing something wrong. I corrected it, sent it back, and they, for whatever reason, were still not able to do it. And so they had to kill that card because the factory simply just could not figure out how to get it to work.
But I had a quick question for Rob, which is that I'm assuming your cards were priced at a point where a certain level of sophistication was allowable. The problem with Party City and AmpScan, not necessarily, because we just made this stuff, but Party City that sold it, they were always trying to get things down so that even a big decoration like that would be selling for $3, $4 at the store.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And we had like the thing for the magazine, the budget. Well, you can imagine when I think I did the biggest amount of a pop-up that was ever done that I did, that was with structural graphics. I think we did a pop-up for McDonald's that went in, I don't know how many different publications, but so there were, I think, around 7 million of these things that were going to be made. So the budget was, multiplied across 7 million of these. So you had to cut it down so your assembly cost was about less than 3 cents each. It was crazy. Like you had to get so creative with a very, very little budget per piece. But so I know what you mean. And so the paper weight was a difference and everything.
What you said during your presentation resonated with me when you said that, even pennies or seconds, multiply ridiculously on the production line when you're producing, hundreds, if not thousands.
Oh yeah. Sometimes you have great ideas that just get scrapped and no one ever sees them. Like, oh, it'd be great to do a little piece of string here, like a piece of ribbon would really, but you can't afford the ribbon, and so they have to scrap it. And you had a whole other pop-up level. Sometimes they'll flatten the artwork and just combine things, and it's practicalities of production. So that's the real world we live in. But that pop-up books are probably where you get to spend the most. Even that is, the save cost too, but that's probably where you get to do your best pie in the sky stuff. And sometimes we'd have clients that were going to spend a lot of money, like Disney, or somebody would spend a lot of money on something, so you'd have a little bit more leeway there. But most of the time you have to play in a very you have to be pretty practical about crazy ideas you have.
Sure.
So
Great. Well, thank you both. There are a couple of additional links in the chat if anyone wants to see some of these wonderful examples. So thank you for adding those, Kyle and Ethan. So I think we'll move on to a brief announcement from Larry Rakow about our exciting new opportunity to get a hold of some long I don't know, some pop-up books you haven't been able to find. So tell us about this auction that's coming up. If you
Well, in just about a week or so, starting on March 1st, the Movable Book Society has in the past couple of years sponsored a couple of online virtual auctions of really amazing materials. Some of these are contributed by members, some come directly from paper engineers. And there are always just remarkable things that are available. This time around, starting on March 1st, the folks will be able to access what's going to be coming in the auction. That'll give everybody about a week or so to take a look at things, think about which ones they really most want to acquire, check their pocketbooks, and get ready for the auction itself, which begins on Thursday, March 6th, and goes through Saturday, March 8th. And during those 2 days, bidding will actually be open. I'm not sure. Ralston did a great job on the Movable Book Society site, and possibly there's a direct link to it in the things above. If not, it will be under conferences. But the rules. The only thing that I do want to mention is that the rules for something like this are a little bit different than the experiences many of us have had on online auctions. I'm going to mention eBay only because that's something that most of us are familiar with in one way or another. And on eBay, you can set a high price. You can on many online auctions, and then have your bid automatically increase as other bidders bid against you. In this auction, the price you bid is the price that shows up. If there's an item that starts with a $5 bid and you bid $200 against it, then $200 will show as the bid, and people can bid against you at that point. That's really about it. This is something that we've been doing for about 3 years now. During years that there are conferences, like this year in St. Louis, we have a rather extensive auction, usually about 50 items, that runs concurrent with the conference itself. This is a lead-in to that. It's a smaller auction. It has 25 items, but 25 great items. There are a lot of limited edition and signed pop-ups. There is 19th century pop-up. There are some really scarce and wonderful items. So that's all I have to say about it. I have fun putting it together, and I really hope that folks will enjoy bidding on it once it becomes available on March 1st. That's it.
Okay,
Suzanne?
Larry, Ellen is asking, what do you think is the star must-have item?
That would be revealing, Ellen, shame on you. That would be revealing something that I don't want to say. So there are a lot of really neat things, and I'm sure that Ellen will find something amongst them to enjoy.
All right, so I think that's a wonderful segue into Ellen, our pop-up lady, talking about some amazing Kubašta pop-ups in Prague, as is their want. So please share your screen and show us this amazing exhibition. I keep hearing snippets, and you're the one with more Kubašta anywhere else than in Prague, so you would know if it was a good one.
We found that to be true, that Roman and I have an amazing collection, which I love to share when I do exhibitions. So yes, that's who I specialize. You can see my pop-up from Prague poster below. So let me get right to it, because I will run over in time. I'm going to share. Let's see if this all works. Okay. All right. Now, is this my... Okay, let me see how this goes. So I knew about this exhibition from Kubašta's grandson, Roman, and I'll refer to him as Roman and the artist as Kubašta. Unfortunately, I couldn't go to the opening because it was at the same time as our Thanksgiving. But we were both really anticipating getting together for the first time. So I went with my best friend, Myrna, and this is what I saw outside the Manus Exhibition Hall. This huge, almost the whole street devoted to Wojciech Kubašta. I mean, it took my breath away. And you will hear me say over and over how excited I was to be there. So this is Roman, and he is holding my gift to him, which was a copy of the catalog from the pop-ups from Prague, which was for the Kubašta's 100th birthday. Roman does not speak any English. I speak 3 words in Czech. And so he hired a translator, which made everything go very smoothly. I've never worked with a translator before. And he also closed the exhibition to the public so that we would be able to focus on each other and all of the work. So this is what the exhibition space looked like. Roman is both an engineer and a publisher, and he has reprinted many of Kubašta's folk tales, and he created this stepwise for demonstration. And this is where you can see them moving. I am going to show them close up, but I'm giving you an overview. Looking to the back, you see these monstrous enlargements, 300 times of Kubašta's illustration. It made for a very, very powerful. And in the back is another set of stands that had the most exhilarating thing of all, unpublished mock-ups. I will be showing you those in detail. Along this long wall were the original art from the fairy tale series. And if you ever get to see the original art, it is so compelling to feel the paper that Kubašta did. They are all not only hand-drawn, but they are cut so that you just have to fold them. And that's how they went to the printer. And again, in the back are the unpublished ones, and you can see there Winnie the Pooh. And against the wall, the creches are enlarged 300 times. And what he would do at Christmas time is he would enlarge them and put them in museums, institutions, and malls. So they were part of the decorations for the holiday. So here we are, and I insisted that we take it in front of Mickey Mouse because my nephew was a graphic designer for Mickey. He doesn't like Mickey, neither do I, and I had to hold his hand so he didn't make a rude gesture. He was a wonderful host, and this was the dessert cake that was waiting for Myrna and I. Absolutely fabulous. So without further ado, I especially took this so all of you could see how they are mechanized. They are attached to a computer which plays them randomly so that everything doesn't move at the same time. And this is the entire book here. And I want you to focus on the piano player. Didn't Meggendorfer do this piano player? I am going to find out if Kubašta knew of Meggendorfer's work. This is like right out of the Meggendorfer. Table lay yourself. Yeah, I can get them both moving. And I try to imagine the public coming in. Maybe they kind of knew his work, but if they didn't, to be presented with movables animated this way so you can actually see how they move, it had to be so exciting. This is his safari, which is part of the White series, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when we get further along. Roman is going to get a patent on what he's done here. And if I didn't say this, I'll say it now. These are all his reproductions. He has not taken the original books and mechanized them that way. Here is the sewing machines that were produced in Czechoslovakia. I had a smaller one of these, not this exact one, but for the sewing machines in my animated advertising exhibit at the Groya last year. And here is what I could not wait to share with you because it just blew my top. These are the mock-ups of the books that were never published. And those paper engineers who already mentioned about how sometimes their work doesn't get published, it happened to Kubašta also. Pinocchio. This is one of 4 covers, and he would do that and present it to Ardia to choose which cover they wanted to use. I'll be showing you the other covers, but his work didn't always get published. So here is his rendition of Pinocchio. I have to go quickly to get it all in. There was one vitrine just of unpublished work, and here are these other Pinocchios. The guy was just amazingly fast. And so Roman was sharing with me how sometimes when pop-ups would go into more editions, the publisher could not find the artwork. So he would just draw another one. And that's how I understand, if you look at Sleeping Beauty, depending upon what copy you have, sometimes she has a very demure bodice, and in others she has cleavage. And I always wondered how that came about. And for those people who think I have everything, you cannot, because a book about ravens, sometimes there are 4, sometimes there are 7, and it depends what edition it is, because he would redraw it. Peter Pan, my favorite Peter Pan. This was a mock-up for the 1956 Melbourne Olympics. This is the front cover, the back cover, and here is inside the Olympians and all the sports. Again, a fully realized mock-up for Lancelot the Knight. These must be produced. I'm going to prevail upon Roman, because he digitizes all of this artwork, and that's how he makes the reproductions. Now, this is where I wanted to mention the White Series. We call it the White Series because Michael Dawson in England, that's what he called them. But Kubašta wanted to call it the ABC series. And I have the very first iterations of that, where on the back of the back cover, he wrote out what he wanted to do. He wanted it for younger children than the Tip and Top series. So this predates the Tip and Top. He's using a black poodle and a white poodle. If you are familiar with Tip and Top and Moon Rocket, I'm sorry, you know this scene is in there. And instead of Tip and Top, you have the 2 poodles. This scene is in Tip and Top and the Moon Rocket, but here the black poodle looks like he's looking at an alien. And the spread on the right never was produced, but I wanted to point it out for the paper engineers, because I don't remember ever seeing an origamic fold that you look inside this way. And I certainly don't think Kubašta ever used this. So this doesn't appear anyplace else, and neither does this kind of scene where I think the alien is shooting a ray gun. Remember, this all took place basically after Sputnik. Around the world, he was thinking ABC, and he has in this series the different countries and continents that begin with A, Australia and America. And you can see in pencil, he wrote it down and put the lines exactly where the text would go. Hansel and Gretel was published, but this one, I'm sure, predates it. And with the Z in the Hansel, I believe he was targeting the Czech public. But these buildings do not appear in the published version. They had a pretzel at the top of the roof. But the funniest of all, and showing Kubašta's humor, where have you ever seen a witch wearing sunglasses? I have never seen it at all, but there she is. This was a single spread. He was working on Adam and Eve. The man never stopped working. The Zombie Crawl, the Frog King, was produced with the 2 characters, but very different. And you will recognize on the right from Castle Tournament, he's working out the knights jousting. If you ever buy a copy, make sure it has both knights, because the kids would remove them and play with them, and they didn't make them back into the book. So in the window are these oversized examples. And on the left is Columbus. And what Roman did, I can't imagine how exciting this is for other people. He did these coverings that look like the ocean. This platform rocks. And so it looks like the ships are at sea. And with this oversized crutch, he put lighting behind it where Kubašta would have cellophane, so it mimicked the windows. And getting to his finer art, this was in its original, I'm sorry, it wasn't in the original. Roman blew it up, but it was done when Kubašta was 18 years old. When the Kubašta exhibit was up, and I spoke about that he never lived in a free society, not as an adult, because the Germans came in 38 when he graduated, and then the Russians took over. He died in 92 when the Russians left. And this seems to be a response to war. Unfortunately, Roman put the red heart in there. And I don't know why he did that, to do that to the artwork, but this is definitely a statement about war. And more fine art on another wall, this beautiful romantic scene of these two lovers and this very bold boat that he did when he visited Yugoslavia when he was a youth. So this was a quick smattering, and just to show you Prague, the Vltavan River, which the Manus Hall flows over, it bisects Prague. And on my bucket list to see was the Dancing House, these two buildings that look like Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire, and that's what they call them. And Roman shared with me that Kubašta couldn't stand them and didn't think that glass buildings would ever become classics. If you didn't know, Kubašta was trained as an architect. And finally, for all of us book people, this is a art installation at the Prague Public Library, the National Public Library. The guidebooks tell you to get there very early. There is always a line out the door. This is at the top of the entry steps. It's made with 8,000 books stacked the way I'm showing you here. And when you look through this teardrop opening, there are hidden mirrors. So when you look up and you look down, it looks like they go to infinity. It really is quite a thing to see, especially in a library and a book lover. So I went as quickly as I could. Thank you. And of course, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Thank you, Ellen. That's amazing. I mean, you feel like we were there. And we're all sort of salivating over those facsimiles being moved. What you said, you were there relatively early in the exhibition, although not the opening.
Actually, close to the end. It opened
Close to the end, so it didn't look like the facsimiles had been worn aggressively like that. So they calibrated it really well. It sounds like amazing.
Just to say, the way it should be shown.
Yeah, I didn't see a whole lot of questions in the chat. Mostly, how did they do that sort of thing. So no, I guess once the mechanism is patented, we'll all be doing this in exhibitions.
Well, I'm going to get how he did it and whatever he was willing to share with me. But he's quite an entrepreneur. I'm sure he'll be trying to sell the mechanisms.
Exactly. Yeah. So what's your plan for trying to get the new editions and then the reprints going? Emiko was asking. Do you know if there will be reprints of some of these outside of Europe?
Yes, you can get them. You can get them. He had in the basement hundreds of copies of all of them, and he does have a website. I'm not sure. I'll have to look. I'm never contacting him that way. I know if you go on Aukro, AUKRO, you will have a devil of a time buying anything if you're outside the European Union or outside Czech Republic. I used to buy from them all the time, and now I can't. They do not sell to America. I mean, it's mind-boggling, but they do sell them there. So those Europeans or others who are watching, you can get it there. But I'll try and find that, and I'll put it in movable stationery, how everyone could buy them. Most of them are in Czech. I think he did some in English as well.
And Bruce is asking how the unpublished works were stored. Was this basically in the family collections the
I
whole
don't
time?
know how he stores them offsite. I mean, he has a huge facility somewhere because he does have a publishing company. They all look like they're well taken care of, and maybe he'll publish them. I don't know.
Okay, Patrick is asking, what did he think about the new box of 12 numbers? I'm not sure what that means. Does that mean, is that one of the,
Yeah, the first done by Bancroft in English, and then it was published in Czech, and now Roman has published them in Czech. He doesn't use the same paper. They're a very glossy paper, so it's a little stiffer. From my point of view as a collector is that I'm just glad it's out there and people now have access to them because they're quite rare, especially the original ones in English.
great. Well, thank you so much for taking us on this international voyage here. That's amazing. All right, and last but not least, let's turn it over to Hillary Carlip and Mike, who is going to be assisting showing your new book. So
thank you. Wow, what a show to follow. That was all spectacular, and so happy to be here. I'm just going to set up a little bit about what this project is, and then let the amazingly spectacular, talented Mike share. He's a paper engineer. I'm sure probably many of you know him, if not everyone. I am just a little background. I'm an author of 6 books and an artist and a graphic designer. And I was approached by something called the Willis Wonderland Foundation, which was set up to perpetuate, that would be the word, the legacy of Allee Willis, who was a Hall of Fame songwriter who wrote some huge hits that I'm sure everyone knows, including like September, the Earth, Wind, and Fire song, and the Friends theme song, and the Color Purple musical. And not only was Allee just a renowned songwriter, she was a multimedia artist, and she had a phenomenal home in North Hollywood. It's a 1937 William Kesling designed home that was rumored to be the MGM party house. And Allee has had and still exists, although she's no longer with us, the most spectacular collection of kitsch. And the foundations, what they're there to do is to find ways to preserve everything about Allee. And they came to me and asked if I could do a pop-up book. And I was like, sure. And of course, it was all new to me. I did deep research, meeting some of you even, thank you for that, and found Mike Malkovas. And he has just been an amazing angel and godsend and collaborator and talent. And together with an illustrator who I've worked with for many years, the 3 of us created this Willis Wonderland, the legendary house of atomic kitsch. So I'm going to have, by the way, there's a documentary film out about Allee that was just in theaters, and the house is prominently in the film, and it's streaming now. So it's called The World According to Allee Willis, if you want to find out more about her. But this is our beautiful thing that I'm going to have Mike share. And just before he does, I'm going to just thank everyone for everything being here. I'm so happy to meet everyone, and everyone's been very welcoming into this world, which is new to me. And I am obsessed now and will continue making amazing projects and hope to work with many of you. And here is the phenomenal Mike. Coming to you momentarily. Mike, I see your microphone's off. If you'd unmute.
Yes, hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, Hillary. Thank you
Hi,
so
Mike.
much about for the introduction and for actually hiring me for to design this book. I think I was blessed,
Mutual.
to meet you and meet our great artist, Neil McCullough from Belfast. And I will try to be short here because I know we are running out of time, and I have like 5 minutes or 3 minutes or so. So I will just show the book, and here it is. So here's the book. It's quite heavy. Okay. Alice Wonderland. Willy's Wonderland. Bonus page. This is the introduction. This is the first spread.
And just to add, we included Allie in every spread from different periods of her life, and also quotes that have been said about her in publications and about her design and her collections and everything. This is her living room. There's all sorts of Easter eggs and tabs and pulling, and I'm sure Mike will show you many of them. This is motorized artwork that Allie did. This piece is called Neutron Dance. She also wrote that song, which many of you may be familiar with. And this is her recording studio with all her gold and platinum records. Things are revealed in drawers. You can see what all the music is, the records, what the song was. Allie conducting, and just every room tells a bit about Allie and the room. The next is her bedroom, and she had what has now become, it's called kitsch couture. She had just crazy wardrobe. So we included a chest where you can pull out 4 different outfits that come out of that chest. More about the wardrobe. This is a bongo bar. Yes, that opens up and there's a bar behind it. And this locks, this mechanism, which I love. Which shows her bed. Closet opens, revealing more of her kitsch couture. This is her kitchen, of course. And it was very interesting, just some behind the scenes. Mike and I went back and forth a lot. He was like, you have too much detail for Pop-Up. There's too much detail. And I was like, but it's Allie. Everything's detailed. We have to. So this is her art studio. so her dog kissing her face had to include that. But we compromised and included in the beginning of the book, there's going to be a downloadable poster of all the detail of everything and stories about some of her collection. And wait, slow down, Mike. That's her
Yes.
skylight that spins.
The skylight?
Yeah. You know, she had a skylight, so we added that. The next is her, where she housed most of her collection, the rec room. And yeah, again, lots of details. And I thank Mike for sticking with me on the details. And finally, her backyard spread with a little peek into the living room. And there's this creation, a bar she created. There's 2 pullouts with text. There's Allie waving goodbye. Thank you for visiting. And one more over, yeah. And that's our book. There's all the back ends. Yeah, so again, I'm new to this world. Everyone who has seen this so far, it comes out next month, has been really excited, and I'm happy to introduce them to this whole new world of pop-up as well. So thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you both. It's always good to hear such a warm assessment of successful collaboration like this. And this is going in so many directions in terms of collaboration, because the basis is the collection, her collection already, and this is sort of horror evacuate like to the extreme. I mean, it's like how many things can you fit in one pop-up book? I mean, it is absolutely out there in terms of being over the top, but it's so appropriately so. And Mike, thank you for finding creative ways to deal with that. I mean, was the only surface that was not covered the lower half of the one flap? There was one flap that you showed sort of folding down as you're opening it. It looked like that might have been the only blank space. So I really appreciated seeing the back too, because you had so much detail there.
Right, that was the floor of the.
Yeah, exactly. So was that the only blank space?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see any specific questions in the chat though. Was the Picasso referring to the haunted house book though? That kind of felt like a little classical paper engineering moment there, but maybe that's just me trying to like connect iconography. Mike, were you aware of that?
That would be that was Mike's idea, moving the eyes, Mike, on the Picasso, Allie's version of the Picasso in the living room.
Let's see. Yeah, Bruce
It's
says
strange. I hardly can hear anything. I don't know why. Maybe
sorry.
I'm just getting old or something. What's going on?
Sorry, I was trying to ask if the Picasso. No, you can't. Oh, was the
Picasso?
Was the Picasso a haunted house reference?
With the eyes.
I don't know.
What
was that?
1970s haunted house, very classic pop-up book. That's okay. It's okay. I guess not.
Here, and I see in the chat someone is asking about this piece, which is that, and they wanted to see it from different angles. So tell me if this is angled enough for you.
Yeah, Seth, is that good? So, and Kyle's asking, what's the print run for this first edition?
Just 1,000.
So 1,000. I know Mike kept trying to talk me into more, and I kept trying to talk them into more.
Yeah.
But it's a foundation that's not well funded, and this was a big project for them. So they wanted to see how 1,000 do, and see what happens.
Right. Well, wonderful. Does anyone have any further questions for our wonderful collaborators?
I just wanted to say that came out great, and Mikos did a great job with it. I think I just realized when I saw the book, I think I bid on this once. I don't know if I talked to you or someone there at the foundation, but that sounded it started looking familiar to me. But I love the way it came out, and congratulations to you both.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate
Small world, small world. But I guess we've come back around to the beginning of the event, and thank you all for staying for a slightly longer meeting, and we'll hopefully see you again next time in April. All right. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Bye all.
Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.